Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2020 thriller The Quarry, a film that is co-written and directed by Scott Teems, and it stars Shea Whigham, Michael Shannon, Bobby Soto, Anna Watt, and it is a film that tells the story of Shea Whigham's character, who is essentially just described as the man in this film, and he kills a travelling preacher, and he's essentially a fugitive on the run who is saved by this travelling preacher, and he ends up killing him, and he takes his place at this small town church as the preacher. Everyone's expecting this preacher to turn up. Shea Whigham's character turns up, tells them he's the new preacher. Everyone accepts it. However, the local sheriff, played by Michael Shannon, suspects that there may well be foul play, and the film then develops from there. Now, this film essentially is a fairly slow-paced thriller. If you like well-made, well-acted, thought-out thrillers, then this is a film that I think you're probably going to get some enjoyment out of. I think for some others, I think the pacing might be a problem for some. Essentially it's a thriller stroke drama, and it's almost a character piece, and it's a film that focuses very heavily on the burden of guilt, and it does it in quite an interesting and fascinating way. I mean, essentially, Shea Whigham's character, who takes the place of this preacher, you could argue he almost finds religion, even though it doesn't specifically focus on that. He definitely is carrying a heavy burden throughout this film, and it weighs heavier as the film goes on, especially when he discovers that there are some innocents that are going to pay harshly for his actions. So it raises some very, very interesting questions, and it's nicely acted by everybody involved. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Michael Shannon. I think he's a brilliant character actor. I first became aware of him in Man of Steel, but I've been keenly interested in the majority of things he has done since. And Shea Whigham, even though I'm not as familiar of his work and things he's done previously, I know he's done things like Death Note and American Hustle, things like that, and he was in Joker recently. He was the detective chasing Joaquin Phoenix's character in that film. So he's a familiar face, but he's not someone that you see, thrust into the limelight in movies, and he essentially has to carry a heavy load on this film, if you like. His character's carrying a heavy burden, and him as a performer and an actor is carrying much of this film on his performance, and it's quite a reserved, subdued performance of a man who is, like you say, he's a criminal, but it blurs the lines between what is a criminal and what isn't, especially when you discover what his crime is and why he's on the run. And it's odd because you kind of want him to make a new life for himself, even though what he does at the beginning of the film to take this preacher's place is pretty unforgivable, really, and pretty downright dirty what he does at the beginning of this film. So it's interesting in a sense of you really aren't on his side at the beginning, but as the film progresses, it blurs that line to the point where you half want him to get away with it and to live some kind of normality, but then it raises this really interesting question: if he does, for him to do that and live this kind of normal, quiet life, others are going to have to pay for his crimes, but the ones who are going to have to pay for those crimes is a petty criminal himself. So it raises loads of questions and moral issues, this film, and I really like how it does that. But it's not a thriller minute. I mean, there are some character dynamics in the film. There's Michael Shannon's character is having a relationship with this like Mexican lady, which it doesn't really seem to go anywhere. It's not overly interesting. There are other elements in this film that aren't particularly interesting, and the big problem I have with this film in a lot of ways is A, the pacing, and B, Michael Shannon's character is almost too similar to the Shea Whigham character. That very reserved, and doesn't feel like there's a lot of passion in this film. And the only one who displays any real passion is the one who is in prison, locked up for somebody else's crime. So it's an odd one really, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of passion from some of the characters. They're a little bit too reserved, a little bit too laid back, and not particularly likeable in some ways. And it's odd, but the one character you kind of gel with in this film is the one that does the dastardly act at the beginning of the film, which is odd really. So it's an odd film in how it presents itself and how it's written and how it's acted out, but it's a decent enough film. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's for everybody, but if you like a well-made thriller with a good that's nicely written and nicely performed by everybody involved, it's a decent story here that does raise some interesting moral questions, then you might get some enjoyment out of this film. So that is my review for The Quarry. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and of course I'll see you back for more reviews on Screen Stars very soon.